It was just a routine emergency until the K9 refused to back away from the ambulance. The barking grew louder, and when they finally opened the doors, what was hidden inside left everyone frozen. Before we get into it, drop your favorite K9 hero's name in the comments and make sure you're subscribed. The morning had begun like most others at Station 34, just outside the sleepy town of Dalton, Pennsylvania. The sky hung low with overcast gray, and the air carried the bitter weight of mid-January frost. Snow clung to curbs and rooftops, but the roads had mostly cleared, enough for ambulances and patrol cars to resume normal operations. The station buzzed with the usual noise: coffee brewing, reports shuffling, chatter about weekend football. Officer Melanie Briggs had just finished her second cup when the K9 unit was dispatched to the northeast corner of Route 11. A traffic accident, minor according to dispatch. A sedan had skidded off a patch of black ice and tapped a utility pole near a row of small industrial warehouses. No injuries, no casualties. Melanie wasn't supposed to be there. Her shift had ended an hour earlier, but Rex, her 5-year-old German Shepherd, had been acting off since the night before. Restless, alert, his head snapping toward the door every time footsteps passed in the hallway. So when the call came in, she offered to go. Rex sat up in the rear of the cruiser as soon as they pulled into the scene. His breathing was shallow, focused. His ears perked in a way Melanie knew meant something was wrong. Not immediate danger, not aggression, but something off the usual rhythm. A small crowd had gathered near the accident site. There was no visible damage, just a crooked bumper and the faint hiss of steam rising from the engine block. An ambulance was parked at an angle nearby. Lights off, rear doors shut, no one inside. As Melanie stepped out, Rex barked once, sharply. Then again and again. He wasn't barking at the car or the bystanders. He was barking at the ambulance. Melanie turned and looked. The paramedics, 2 men and a younger woman, stood beside the injured driver. They looked calm, assessing the driver's vitals, one taking notes while the other shined a penlight in the driver's eyes. Nothing seemed off. But Rex didn't stop. He lunged toward the ambulance, teeth bared, tail straight out, every muscle in his body coiled. Melanie had to brace herself against the leash to hold him back. "Easy, Rex. There's nothing." But he didn't listen. He never acted this way unless he sensed something deeply wrong. Paramedic Emma Jarvis approached, a puzzled look on her face. "Everything okay with your dog?" Melanie nodded slowly. "He's never done this, not like this." Emma tilted her head. "We haven't opened the back of the ambulance yet. We just got here 5 minutes ago. Got caught up checking the driver." Melanie's eyes narrowed. "You locked the back before leaving the hospital." Emma nodded. "Of course, we always do." Still, Rex barked again, now pawing frantically at the rear door. Melanie crouched near him, checking his body language. This wasn't aggression. It wasn't confusion. It was alert. Rex was signaling. She stepped toward the rear doors and knocked twice. No response. Emma stepped closer with her keys. "I mean, it's empty, it has to be," but even her voice wavered. Rex's tail was stiff, unmoving. The moment the key turned and the latch released, he shoved forward, nearly knocking Melanie aside. His snout darted toward the left corner of the van floor, barking with renewed urgency. Emma opened the second door and froze. In the far left corner of the ambulance, beneath a folded gurney, sat a small duffel bag, tightly zipped, completely sealed, unmarked. Emma stepped forward, slowly, then stopped. That wasn't there when we cleaned this out last night." Melanie climbed in, Rex right beside her, nose locked on the bag. "What the hell is this doing here?" Emma whispered. Melanie gently pulled the bag out, careful not to shift anything else. It felt heavier than it looked. She laid it on the stretcher. It was locked. "Call the sergeant," she said, "and alert the bomb unit, just in case." Rex whined softly, but never took his eyes off the bag. 10 minutes later, officers cleared the scene perimeter. Bystanders moved back. A bomb unit from Scranton was called in as protocol. Still, the tension in the air didn't feel like routine. It felt personal. The bomb unit's X-ray scanner showed something inside that looked irregular. Not mechanical, not electronic. Cloth, metal, plastic wrappings. Permission was granted to unzip it manually once the canine alert had been verified. The bag was opened on site cautiously. Inside were medical supplies, but not the kind found in an ambulance. Unmarked syringes, vials, a cloth wrap stained with something dark. And beneath it all, a burner phone that had one unsent text message drafted. The message read, "Drop confirmed, no change to plan, headed to next van." Melanie's hands went cold. Emma stepped back, hand over her mouth. The entire scene shifted. The bag was not forgotten. It had been placed, and whoever placed it knew it would travel inside a medical vehicle unnoticed. Until Rex found it. The next hours moved in a blur. Federal agents were called. EMTs were questioned. Surveillance footage from the last hospital drop-off was pulled. Nothing obvious stood out. But then another detail emerged. The same ambulance had made a stop earlier that morning near a park to assist a minor call, a dizzy elderly woman. She had refused transport. But during that stop, there had been a break in protocol. One of the EMTs had briefly left the rear doors open while speaking to bystanders, and in that 30-second gap, someone could have easily slipped the bag in. There was no ID, no fingerprints, no DNA, just the faint trace of latex gloves and the cold, calculated feel of planning. As night settled in, Rex remained close to Melanie. His eyes stayed trained on every passing person, every passing vehicle. It was as if he understood the bigger picture before anyone else. This was no accident. It was the start of something much deeper, and somewhere out there, another bag was already en route. The following morning came with icy silence. At Station 34, every officer's gait felt slower, heavier. The duffel bag found in the ambulance had shaken them more than any standard case could. Not because of what it was, but because of what it meant. Melanie had hardly slept. Rex hadn't either. He lay near the front door, restless through the night, pacing every few hours, ears twitching to every distant noise. By sunrise, a special task unit had arrived from Harrisburg. Federal agents took possession of the bag, the burner phone, and the vials. Toxicology teams would take days to analyze the unknown substances. But one thing was clear: someone had intentionally planted the bag, and someone else was likely waiting for its arrival. Melanie replayed the chain of events in her mind. The bag had not been there the night before. The ambulance team had run 3 routine calls. And the last stop, the one near the downtown park, was the only time the vehicle had been left unattended. That would be the focus. But it was Rex who pointed them somewhere else entirely. Mid-morning, while reviewing vehicle logs and trying to trace any gaps in coverage, Rex began pacing again. Not just pacing, whining, subtle, alert whines. The kind he only gave when something still lingered in the air, something unresolved. Melanie grabbed his leash and followed him outside, across the rear parking lot where the ambulances were typically parked for cleaning and restocking. The station staff were rotating a different vehicle in and out of the bay, but Rex's focus was on a different rig altogether, one that hadn't been in rotation since yesterday, Unit 12. It had been sidelined after a flat tire that morning, but Rex's behavior suggested something else entirely. He pulled hard toward the back door. Again, another alert. Melanie called it in. This time she requested the unit be fully inspected before anyone even opened a door. The paramedics paused what they were doing and watched from a distance. With gloves and caution, Melanie approached the back doors. They were unlocked. She opened them slowly. Nothing appeared out of place. No duffel bag, no loose medical supplies. But Rex jumped inside. He circled once, then began sniffing under the cot where the base panels met the wall. He pawed lightly. Melanie crouched. The panel was loose. She reached for it and found a gap behind the insulation padding. Inside the space was a rolled-up towel. Tucked within it, another burner phone. Dead. Screen cracked. No battery. But it wasn't the phone that concerned her. It was the note. Folded and dry, barely creased. It read only one sentence. 1 van down, 3 to go. Melanie's pulse quickened. She stepped back and immediately radioed command. The message was clear. This was bigger than a one-time drop. There was a network, and the ambulances were only the surface. The forensics team scanned the vehicle and found faint prints, smudged, partial, and most unusable. But one small discovery made everyone stop. A fingerprint on the inside of the panel that matched no staff, no known records, and most importantly did not belong to any of the 3 paramedics assigned to Unit 12. The pieces were scattered, and the only one consistently connecting them was Rex. Melanie met with Supervisory Agent Daniel Hargrove later that afternoon. Hargrove had already begun coordinating with Homeland Security. Medical transport routes were being quietly flagged. No public alert had gone out yet, but they needed a thread. Melanie offered a suggestion. "Let him track it," she said, motioning toward Rex. "He picked up on something the first time. Let him do it again." It was unorthodox, but Hargrove agreed. They brought in a training vest for Rex, fitted him with a fresh GPS tag, and gave him access to the lot. They positioned his search around the 3 ambulances that had run calls in the last 24 hours. But Rex skipped all 3. Instead, he trotted toward a non-emergency shuttle van parked behind the maintenance building. The van wasn't part of their rotation. It belonged to a third-party courier service that delivered medications between clinics and the local compounding pharmacy. It hadn't moved in 2 days. No one had flagged it because it was part of a separate contract. Rex growled low at the rear bumper. Melanie motioned for backup. The van's back was opened with a master key from dispatch. Inside was an empty cargo space, crates marked with blank white labels, plastic-sealed bottles with no markings. An unmarked cooler sat beneath the front seat. Inside, nestled between 2 small freezer packs, was a small vial of clear fluid labeled only with a date, 23/2025. The date was 2 weeks away. The full gravity had not yet sunk in, but the implications were massive. The same person or group was targeting emergency routes. They were staging supplies inside mobile vehicles, slipping under protocol, disguising drops in ways that mimic common inventory. Melanie stared at the vial, then at Rex, who hadn't moved since his alert. He had found it again. No cameras had captured who planted the cooler. But the GPS system from the delivery van revealed something else. 3 stops that were unlisted in the courier manifest. One of them was just outside a children's hospital in York. The other, 2 hours south near a veterans' home in Harrisburg. And the third, an unregistered location on a back road in Lancaster. All connected by vans, all likely targets, and all suddenly within the investigative map now forming, one layered thread at a time. As darkness fell, Melanie sat with Rex outside the station lot, his ears flicked toward the wind again. She knew the storm wasn't over, but they were getting closer. And somehow a single K9 was staying one step ahead of the ones trying to bury the truth. The cold air hung still over Lancaster County as dawn broke across the quiet back road where the last courier van had pinged. The location was odd. Not near any medical facility or official delivery point, just a gravel turnout behind an abandoned feed warehouse. Melanie arrived with Rex at 6:45 a.m. The surrounding field was coated in a thin sheet of frost. Wind tugged at the corners of old, rusted sheet metal on the warehouse roof. There was no movement, no tire tracks, no recent footprints. But Rex tensed. He leaned forward on the leash, tail low, nose high. He didn't bark, not this time. He simply pulled, slowly but surely, toward the rear of the building. Melanie followed, her steps soft on the gravel. Behind the warehouse, hidden from road view, was a single beige shipping container. No markings, no locks. Melanie called it in. No one was supposed to be there. She was told backup would take 20 minutes. She didn't wait. She drew her weapon and circled the container while Rex sniffed along the edges. At the base of the back wall, Rex stopped, one paw raised, his chest lowered. He growled, not at the container, but at the ground beneath it. There was a gap between the dirt and the floor of the unit, just a few inches, enough to push something beneath it. Melanie crouched. Wedged into the soil, almost buried completely, was another vial, just like the one in the van, same label format, same date. But this one had a red slash across it, and beneath the vial, wrapped in thin black plastic, was a phone, a live one. The screen lit up, no signal, But it was recording, a live feed still rolling. Melanie's pulse jumped. Whoever had planted these was watching, possibly nearby. Rex tensed again, turning his head sharply to the south tree line. That's when she saw it, just a flicker of reflection. A scope, a windshield. It vanished as quickly as it appeared. Melanie radioed for immediate lockdown of the perimeter. Within 15 minutes, state police had set up a full sweep of the area. A single vehicle was found half a mile into the woods, a beat-up sedan, empty, engine still warm. Inside the trunk, 4 courier jackets, 3 sets of forged delivery credentials, and a stack of blank medication inventory forms. Whoever had used them was gone, but not far ahead. The real break came 2 days later. The lab results from the vials came back. They were not narcotics. They were experimental paralytics, undetectable in common drug screenings. In high enough doses, they could suppress motor function for hours, lethal in combination with sedatives. The target wasn't addiction, it was control, and the method was chilling. Slip it into saline bags, hide it in ambulance kits, plant it in emergency vehicles, exactly where chaos and trust intersect. The network had a name now, Silent Ride. Built on exploiting public trust in emergency services, they had slowly mapped out routes, routines, and access points through stolen uniforms, disguised drops, and counterfeit gear. What they hadn't accounted for was a single K-9 with a flawless alert record. By the following week, an interagency operation was in full swing. Stations across the Northeast began quietly inspecting their equipment, tracing vendor contracts, and checking personnel backgrounds. Melanie found herself at the heart of a case that spanned state lines, but she never let Rex leave her side. He had caught what others missed. 3 of the 7 identified drop sites had been uncovered because of him. His ability to track not just drugs but disturbance, movement, subtle changes in smell had saved lives before anything irreversible had happened. The moment that struck hardest, though, came at a small award ceremony held 2 weeks later. The mayor spoke briefly. Local news showed up, but it was the head of the county EMS who asked to speak directly to Melanie. He handed her a small velvet box. Inside, an engraved tag. To Rex, who found the unseen and spoke through silence. Melanie looked down at her partner. Rex sat calmly, his ears perked, eyes watching the gathered crowd. He didn't know what it meant, but he knew something had changed. After the ceremony, as the station lights dimmed and the wind curled around the building's edges, Melanie sat on the steps outside. Rex curled beside her. They didn't need sirens to know the world had danger in it, but sometimes they reminded each other. Truth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it barks at a quiet ambulance, refuses to move, and waits until someone listens. And when that happens, everything changes. If you like these kind of stories, imagine what's coming next. These dogs don't just bark. They uncover what no one else sees. So hit that subscribe button and drop a like, because the next case, you really don't want to miss it.